Jai Hind friends, today we'll be discussing about the history of Arab-Israel conflict, right since its inception till date. This will include the Arab-Israel conflict, thereafter the various 4 or 5 Gaza wars that have taken place so far, the 2 Lebanon wars, and the third one which is continuing. Let's start off with Arab-Israel conflict. First of all, we have to understand one thing very clearly, that the geographical location of Israel is very, very important. Why is it important? You see, this is Israel. You can see Israel here, a small little country marked in blue. India is almost 150 times the size of Israel. Now see, the location is very strategic. Here it is the Mediterranean Sea. This is the Arabian Sea. This is the Asian continent. This is Asia. This is Europe. This is Africa. This particular land lies at the confluence of 3 continents. This was the main trade route also earlier, and this entire region is the Fertile Crescent. Tigris and Euphrates flow here, the Nile River flows here. So civilizations have over the period of time survived, sustained and flourished here. Location of Israel being closer to the Mediterranean Sea and down towards southeast towards the Arabian Sea through the Suez Canal, it's a major trade route also. So it's very strategically located. All through history, civilizations have flourished here, and obviously with civilizations wars too have come through. This land of Israel, earlier it was known as Canaan. It's known by different names: Canaan, Levant, Palestine, and presently Israel. This ancient land of Canaan has been the birthplace of 3 important religions, and these religions are known as Abrahamic religions. Now, what are Abrahamic religions? See, the earliest human considered to be was Adam. Adam's son was Enoch. Enoch's son was Noah. Noah had 3 sons, and one of them was Abraham or Prophet Abraham. Abraham had 2 sons, one is Ismail. Ismail was sent down to Saudi Arabia. His progeny, Prophet Muhammad, founded Islam. Another son, Isaac, a very beloved son of Abraham, he and his progeny settled in Israel, that time Canaan. Now, Isaac's son was Jacob. Jacob's other name was Israel. Jacob himself was known as Israel. That is how the name Israel came through. Jacob had 12 sons. One of the important descendants was Moses, and another important descendant was King David. The word David means the loved one. David in Arabic he was also known as Daud, and he was the main king who united all these 12 tribes and made Jerusalem as his capital. Now David's descendant was King Solomon. Well, David wanted to make an important temple at Jerusalem, temple of the war god Yahweh. But David died at the age of 70 years. He couldn't make this temple. His descendant and a very prominent King Solomon made the first temple at Jerusalem. I repeat for your information, Abraham had 2 sons. One was Ismail. Ismail was directed to go to Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula. His descendant, Prophet Muhammad, founded Islam. Another son, Isaac, and his son Jacob, whose name was Israel, in a way founded Israel, or rather all the tribes of Israel were his descendant. One of the important kings of the Jewish community was David. David united all these 12 sons of, or 12 tribes of Jacob. and made Jerusalem as his capital. His descendant Solomon made the first temple. Solomon made the first temple at Jerusalem. This temple was revered by the Jews over the years. Well, from Jews themselves, a descendant, later descendant was Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was born as a Jew, but later on started Christianity. So from Abraham, there are three religions that have emerged. One is Islam. Islam came through Ismail, then Prophet Muhammad and Islam. The second one was Judaism through Isaac, then Jacob, whose name was Israel, his 12 sons who made 12 tribes, and one of the descendants of Jacob was Solomon. Descendant of Solomon was Jesus Christ. Jesus founded Christianity, as we all know. So all these three prominent religions, that is Islam, Judaism and Christianity, are known as Abrahamic religions. What were the 12 tribes of Judah? Let's see. We had seen here Abraham, his son Isaac, his son Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons who made 12 tribes. These tribes were united by a prominent king, a very important king known as King David. See here, Jacob called Israel had 12 sons. These were the 12 sons of Jacob. The King David united all these 12 tribes and founded the kingdom of Canaan, or shall I say Palestine. This is King David. King David also in Arabic is known as Daud, which means the loved one. We go further. Now we had seen here, I just delete all these things. We had seen here very clearly that Abraham had two sons. Who were the two sons of Abraham? One was Ismail and another was two sons of Abraham was Ismail, whose descendant Prophet Muhammad founded Islam. Another was Isaac. Isaac was very beloved son of Abraham. Now God had commanded Abraham certain things. We'll see in the next slide. God directed Abraham to leave his father Terah and settle in the land of Canaan. So Abraham had settled in the land of Canaan, which is the present day Palestine or Israel, whatever you call it. Now Abraham was commanded by God to go to Mount Moriah. Mount Moriah was an important hillock in Jerusalem, Canaan, Palestine, today's Palestine. And Abraham was commanded to sacrifice the thing he loved most. God asked him, yes, Abraham, what do you love the most? He says, Father, I love my son Isaac the most. God commanded him, take Isaac, go to Mount Moriah and sacrifice him. Abraham obeyed his orders. Abraham walks 3 days, goes to Mount Moriah, which is present day Jerusalem, Temple Mount, the area where Mount Moriah exists. When he was about to sacrifice his son, the angels held his hand. That is, God intervened, stopped the sacrifice. God blessed Abraham. God just wanted to test Abraham, and Abraham had come out true in this test. God blessed Abraham and told him that your generations would be founders of great empires. Now that's how Isaac was saved. We had seen here Isaac. Isaac was saved. His son was Jacob, whose other name was Israel. And Israel is named after Jacob. Now Jacob's 12 sons were 12 tribes who were united by King David, and Jerusalem was made the capital. Now these 12 tribes came and settled in Canaan. King David, as we have already seen the photograph, 12 tribes were united by him. He made Jerusalem as his capital. David was a great king. David wanted to make a temple of Yahweh, the war god, but couldn't make it. He died at the age of 17. David's successor was Solomon, as we had already seen in this diagram. Successor of David was Solomon. Solomon fulfilled his father's wishes. He made the first temple. Solomon's successor, as we have discussed, or descendant subsequently was Jesus Christ. Born as a Jew, he started Christianity. Now Quran recognizes all these people as prophets. All these people, Abraham, Ismail, Isaac, Jacob, David, Solomon, all these, even Jesus also is a prophet, Moses. So Islam doesn't criticize any of these because it's written in Quran. Now come to the next slide. This is what we had seen. Abraham was ordered by God to go to Mount Moriah and sacrifice his son Isaac. When he was about to sacrifice Isaac, the angels intervened and stopped Abraham. God just wanted to test Abraham's commitment to God, his love for God, and he came out true on that. Isaac was saved. Isaac's son was Joseph, we have seen, Jacob, and Jacob had 12 sons who made 12 tribes of Israel. Temple of Solomon. We had seen David wanted to make a temple. David failed. However, his son Solomon, King Solomon, made the first temple. This is King Solomon. He made the first temple. This is a pictorial depiction of the first temple. This is how the first temple looked like. Here is King Solomon. And this first temple was very, very pious to the Jews. However, subsequently we'll see how the first temple was destroyed, how the second temple was made by the Jews, and the second temple was again destroyed. And as of today, the only thing that is remnant is the western wall of the second temple, which the Jews call as the Wailing Wall or the Western Wall, and they pray there. Now, location of Israel we have already discussed. It's at the confluence of Mediterranean Sea here, the Arabian Sea this side, the Asian continent this side, the African continent this side, the European continent this side. So the importance is self-evident. See it in a larger map. This small little land is Israel. It's so difficult to even spot, but that notwithstanding, here is Israel. This place, see here, yes, this is Israel. It's surrounded by Mediterranean Sea on the left. Down southeast is the Arabian Sea. You can see all this Egypt on one side, Lebanon on another side, Syria on another side, Iraq slightly away, but again an enemy. This is Jordan. So it's surrounded by almost 5-6 enemy Arabian countries. Now we have to see how did the Jews migrate to various countries. The 12 tribes of Judah were living in Canaan. The 12 tribes descendants of Jacob were living in Canaan. They were settled there. How did they move to different places? Well, here comes the history of slavery. Before 1000 BC, the Jews were carried as slaves by the Egyptians. Around 1000 BC, as we have discussed, King David united them, brought them to Palestine, made Jerusalem as their capital. David's son, King Solomon, had reached great heights, and we have discussed and we have seen the photograph of the first temple that was built by Solomon. In 720 BC, the Assyrians attacked and destroyed Israel. They again, for a second time, captured most of the Israeli population into captivity as slaves. Third time in 620 BC, the Babylonians attacked. King Nebuchadnezzar attacked and destroyed Judah. Jerusalem was completely destroyed. Solomon's first temple was destroyed in 620 BC. Solomon had made a temple, we've seen, a beautiful temple as a reverent place for. This was Solomon's first temple. It was destroyed in 620 BC by Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king, and he again, for a third time, carried the Jews into captivity as slaves. 50 years later, when Persian king Cyrus conquered Lebanon, Jews were able to return to 50 years later, that is 620 plus 50, 670 के आसपास, around 670 BC, the Jews came back. 515 BC, Jews rebuilt The Temple of Solomon, the second Temple of Solomon, a second time they rebuilt it because it was a very important place for their religious prayers. 332 BC, Jews came under the dominion of Macedonians, and then came the Roman conquest under Pompey in 63 BC. We go further. The Romans also took the Jews as slaves. So 5 times slavery. 66 AD, the king Titus of Rome destroyed the second temple again. You've seen that the second temple was rebuilt in 515, but 66 AD again it was destroyed. We've seen here 515 BC the Jews has rebuilt the second temple here, but it was destroyed again in 66 AD by the Roman king Titus. All that remained of the temple was the western wall, the Wailing Wall they call it, and the Jews pray there. From 63 BC to around 500 AD, after Jesus, almost for 500 years, the Roman rule continued. The Romans also took the Jews into slavery. Around 2nd AD, Roman Emperor Hadrian was so strict that he prohibited all Jews from getting into Jerusalem. So repeated carriage into slavery, prohibition of entering into Jerusalem were the reasons how the Jews spread all over the world. This led to the dispersion of the Jews throughout the world. From 500 AD to 637 AD, Palestinians came under the Byzantine rule. And from 6th century AD to 15th century AD, almost for 900 years, the Arabs ruled Palestine. And this is the time when most of the structures most of the structures were already destroyed, but the Arabs came and built Muslim structures on the Temple Mount, which was sacred to the Jews. From 16th century to 19th century, almost for 400 years, the Ottomans ruled the land of Canaan, the land of Palestine, or the land of Israel. We've already seen this thing. Just to recapitulate, Abrahamic religions, 3 religions. Abraham had one son, Isaac. Isaac's son, Jacob, was also known as Israel. Israel was named after him. He had 12 sons, which made 12 tribes. And one of the sons was great, David. He united all of them and made Jerusalem as his capital. Couldn't make the temple because he died at the age of 70. His son, great Solomon, made the first temple. Solomon's descendant, Jesus, born as a Jew but started Christianity. Now we go to the second side. One of the sons of Abraham was Ismail. He was directed to go to the Arabian Peninsula. One of his descendants later was Prophet Muhammad, who started Islam. Now we'll go and see the history of Ismail, what happened. Look here. Ismail and his mother Hagar were directed to go to the Arabian Peninsula, which was a barren desert. Mother and the child were roaming around in the Arabian desert. They felt very thirsty. There was no water all around. They were about to die. But as we already know that Ismail was there to create great empires. He was not there destined to die, as per God's commandments. Hagar prayed to God. The angels professed that, Hagar, please throw a stone. Wherever you throw a stone, you'll get water. Hagar threw a stone. Water erupted. And that place is Makkah now. This is the story of Ismail and his mother Hagar. We again see Abraham, one of the sons Ismail, directed to go to the Arabian region, and the story of his mother Hagar and finding of water at Makkah. Makkah is a religious place now. Makkah is where Prophet Muhammad was born, and it's the most pious place for the Muslims. If we go further down, this area is the Fertile Crescent. It's in the shape of a crescent, so it's known as Fertile Crescent. Fertile it is because there are a large number of rivers here. The river Tigris, Euphrates River, and the Nile River. Civilizations have thrived in this region. Now the Arabs, around 6th century, they started migrating towards the Fertile Crescent. Islam became very prominent in the 6th century, 7th century, 6th, 7th century, and they started migrating towards the Fertile Crescent. Let's see what happens ahead. Gradually, the Arabs started moving to the Fertile Crescent. 6th century AD, Prophet Muhammad united the three Arab tribes and they gradually started moving towards the Fertile Crescent. What was the Fertile Crescent? This area. The area where the Jews lived. This is the Fertile Crescent area. Religious jihad started, spread of Islam started. 636 to 640 AD, the Palestinians were conquered by the Arabs. The Holy Land was conquered by the Arabs around in the 7th century, beginning of the 7th century, first half of the 7th century AD. The Arab rule continued till 15th century AD, that was approximately for 900 years. And this is the period, as we have discussed, the Temple Mount area, certain Muslim structures were built. In 16th century AD, the Arabs were replaced by the Ottomans. Ottomans ruled till 19th century, almost for 400 years. After the Ottomans, in 1914 came the First World War. The Ottomans were defeated by the British and Palestine came under the British rule. So we have seen that since 1000 BC downwards till the time of Jesus and subsequently also, large number of times the Jews were carried into captivity as slaves. They went to different countries, they started trading. They were prohibited from possession of land, so they got into trade, they became money lenders. Gradually hatred developed against the Jews. The poor fellows had no homeland, but had an acumen for trade. This is a chart showing the e-migration of the Jews in various times. You can see it in your own time. They spread all over Europe, north parts of Africa and parts of Russia and Middle East. Now the Temple Mount at Jerusalem. We had read earlier that King Daud or David, known amongst the Jews, Daud amongst the Israelis, Arabs. The word means the beloved. He had united the 12 Jewish tribes and made Jerusalem as his capital. David wanted to make a temple of the war god Yahweh, but died earlier at the age of 70. Subsequently, Solomon, the great king, the great Jewish king, made the first temple. You see, Jacob, Israel, 12 sons. David, an important king, tried making the temple of Yahweh, united all the Jews, made Jerusalem as his capital, but died at an early age of 70. Solomon, subsequently his son, a great king, made the first temple. And this is the first temple. You can see this is how the first temple looks like. We go further. The importance of Al-Aqsa Mosque. What had happened is, we had seen that Hagar, mother of Ismail, had moved to the Arabian Peninsula. There was no water. She was directed by the angels to throw a stone. Water emerged, and that place is Mecca, the most holy place for the Muslims. Prophet Muhammad was also born at Mecca. Here at Mecca, Prophet Muhammad had received God's calling. Later on, due to problems, Muhammad had migrated to Medina. Now, Prophet Muhammad subsequently is said to have come from Mecca all the way to Jerusalem, to the place where the Temple Mount is there. He had prayed at a place, and that place is And that place presently is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. That's why this Al-Aqsa Mosque is so important. I'll just switch off the mobile phone. Please pardon me. Now, Al-Aqsa Mosque is the third most holiest place for Islam after Makkah and Medina. Prophet Muhammad from Makkah to Al-Aqsa came to Al-Aqsa Mosque, that is the Temple Mount in Israel, Jerusalem. The same night he goes to heaven and comes back. The place where he worshipped was the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The direction was towards the Temple Mount, and this is known as the first Qibla. Qibla stands for direction of prayer at Al-Aqsa Mosque. We'll be able to understand it by means of certain photographs. See here. This entire area you see in the entire photograph is the Temple Mount. The Jews call it the Temple Mount because this is the area where their temple existed. Solomon's first temple, the Solomon's second temple existed here. This is the Dome of Rock. This area is, here is a mosque which is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third most holiest site of Islam. Now Prophet Muhammad had come from Makkah on a horse known as Burak. Burak was a winged horse. He tied Burak somewhere here, prayed here at Al-Aqsa Mosque facing the dome, went to the dome, took a flight again on the horse Burak to heaven as per God's commandment, and came back to this area the same night. So that's how this particular place holds importance for Islam. This is the third holiest site. Now why is it important for the Jews? It's important for the Jews because the Jews consider that this entire area, their temple, first temple of Solomon, the second temple of Solomon existed. The Jews believe that this quadrangle, this flat hilltop was their temple site. And believe me, this particular wall, this wall is known as the Wailing Wall. They say this is the only remnant, this wall is the only remnant of their temple of Solomon. And you see large number of Jews congregated here. They pray here at this wall. They are not permitted to go into the Muslim religious sites, which are the Dome of Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. We'll see it a little better. See, this is the Dome of Rock. A dome has been built on a rock, and this particular rock was the place where Isaac was to be sacrificed but was saved. And this is the western wall or the Wailing Wall, whatever you call it, a very, very holy site for the Jews, western or the Wailing Wall. You see a large number of Jews gathered here. There are cracks in this wall wherein they write down their wishes and put inside the stones. Considered to be a very pious place for the Jews. This side is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is not being seen in this particular photograph. Now we'll see what is underneath the Dome of Rock. This is the Dome of Rock. It's a Muslim site. It's not exactly a mosque, but it's a Muslim site. Built during the Arab rule. Earlier there must have been the Temple of Solomon here. And there is a rock inside this. This rock you can see. Here is the place where Isaac was to be sacrificed by Abraham, but angels intervened and he was saved. So it's a holy site for the Jews also. It's a holy site for Islam because Prophet had taken his first flight to heaven from this rock, and that's why these sites are disputed. Here is an aerial view of the entire Temple Mount. See again, just for your understanding, this squarish hilltop is the Temple Mount. This area is the Dome of Rock. There is a rock underneath where Isaac was to be sacrificed. Subsequently, Islamic structure constructed between 6th century AD to 15th century here a dome-shaped structure. Here is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. What's the importance of Al-Aqsa Mosque? They say Prophet Muhammad from Medina flew on a horse to this place. The name of the horse was Burak. It was a winged horse. People may ask as to how come Prophet Muhammad within one day came from Makkah to Medina. He was on a winged horse, a horse having wings, it is presumed. The Prophet landed here. He prayed facing the Dome of Rock. That's why this became the third holiest site for Islam. From here the Prophet goes to the Dome of Rock. From here he takes a flight again on his horse Burak, goes to heaven. God shows him heaven. After having seen heaven, the same night he comes back. This is the importance of this area for Islam. Now the Jews believe that this entire area was the area of their first temple and the second temple, the Temple of Solomon. And Jews believe this particular wall, you see I am drawing the pen here, this particular wall, this area is the western wall, the only western wall, the only part of the structure of their temple which is still intact. You see large number of Jews gathered here, they pray here. This is also known as the Wailing Wall. Wailing Wall. Now discrimination against Jews. It's not a new phenomenon, it's an age-old phenomenon. We already discussed it partially. Jews had migrated to various parts of the world. Obviously, firstly due to slavery, secondly for the sake of trade, thirdly they were enterprising people, fourthly they were not permitted to enter Jerusalem also. Discrimination on ethnic, religious and racial grounds were a perpetual feature against the Jews. The Christians believe that Jews were instrumental in crucifixion of Jesus Christ. So the Christians are against Jews. The Muslims on the other hand believe that Nabi means Prophet Muhammad, had decreed that don't trust the Jews. Jews believed to have conspired against Prophet Muhammad. That is why the Muslims hate Jews. So these are the reasons, various reasons of discrimination. Certain reasons for discrimination is that they were wealthy people, they were business people, they used to lend money, so certain parts of the world started hating them because of that. But Jews over the history had no permanent land, either carried into captivity or spread over large parts of Europe, Asia and Africa. Prosecuted, and when the prosecuted increased, it was known as anti-Semitism. What was anti-Semitism? Especially it became very, very prominent during Hitler's time. Hitler had a thinker known as Goebbels. He gave the prophecy of anti-Semitism, means go against the Jews. Hitler prosecuted and killed 6 million Jews. So because of anti-Semitism prevalent in Europe especially, in 1897, one of the philosophers, one of the thinkers of the Jewish community, Theodor Herzl, an Austrian Jew, he started the Zionist movement. He said, look Jews, you have to survive in one particular homeland, and that is your Israel or Palestine. Please go back to Israel, Palestine, make a strong nation there and survive. Otherwise you got no chances of survival. And the Jews started moving to Palestine in bits and pieces and at times in large strengths also. Subsequently, the Britishers also helped the movement. We'll discuss it later. Now, why did the Britishers help this movement of the Jews back to Palestine? We'll see. You see, in 1914, the First World War started. It continued till 1918. The belligerent parties were the Allied parties, that is France, United Kingdom, Russia and United States. I repeat, France, UK, Russia and US and Japan also. And the central powers were Germany, Austria-Hungary, Ottoman Empire and the Bulgarians. You see, these are the central powers. You can see them in the map. Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria and Ottoman Empire. And these are the Axis powers, England, France, Italy, Russia, etc. The World War continued from 14 to 18. The Britishers required support from wherever they could get it. Jews were a very prominent and important community in Europe. the Britishers played dirty. On one hand, they promised a homeland to the Jewish community. On the other hand, they promised larger Arab state to the Arab community. And on the third side, or very clandestinely, amongst their allies, they agreed that they'll be dividing the land of Palestine into different allied powers. We'll see how it happened. Let's see. First of all, we know 1914 the World War started. 1916, silently, it was a secret document. See, it was a secret agreement. In 1960, the British and the French secretly divided the territory. Mark Sykes was the British representative, a politician. Francois Picot was the French representative. Secretly, they agreed that they'll be dividing Palestine post the World War is over. What did they do? These areas, the pink and the red areas, they said it will go to the Britishers. The blue and light blue areas will go to the French. The beige color or the yellowish color will go to the Russians. And this red part, the Palestine, would become a part of the British mandate of Palestine. Here in this slide, you can see and understand the planned secret division, which is known as the Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1960, clearly. This area goes to the French, this area goes to the British, and this particular area goes to the Russians. This land remains as a British mandate of Palestine. This was the Sykes-Picot Agreement, a secret agreement. Neither did the Jews know about it, nor did the Arabs know about it. And further we see how the British played dirty. Here it is. After the Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1916, in 1917, the Britishers made the Balfour Declaration. Sir Arthur James Balfour was a British Foreign Secretary, that is a British Foreign Minister in a way. And Lionel Walter Rothschild was a great leader of the Anglo-Jewish community in Britain. Sir Balfour seeks Jewish support in the World War I. He reached out to Walter Rothschild and promised to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine in return for support. Now this gentleman, Sir Balfour, tells Rothschild, look, all the Jews must support us during the World War and we'll give you a Jewish homeland. We'll give you a Jewish homeland. Whereas clandestinely they had already made the Sykes-Picot Agreement we have seen. Here they are making very next year they make the Balfour Declaration stating that we'll give the Jews a Jewish homeland. And on the third side, see, another act of treachery. The Britishers carry out the Hussain-McMahon correspondence. McMahon you very clearly understand. The McMahon line we all know. Sir Henry McMahon, he was the British High Commissioner to Egypt. And here is Hussein ibn Ali, the Amir of Makkah. In a series of secret letters to Hussein, Sir Henry McMahon promises a greater Arab state in return for support against the Ottomans. Sir Henry McMahon writes to Hussein, look, you please revolt against the Ottomans during First World War, support Britain, and once the war is over, we'll give you a larger Arab state, discreetly hinting that Palestine will also be a part of you. Now this was a war situation, everything is fair in love and war, and the Britishers thought it so. On one side they make this secret Sykes-Picot Agreement planning to divide the territories amongst themselves. On the second side they make the Balfour Declaration promising the Jews a homeland. And on the third side they promise a greater Arab state to Hussein ibn Ali. All this was done basically to garner support. But finally what happens is the Britishers or the Allied power win, the Central powers lose, and the land of Palestine comes under the British mandate. This is the present Palestine or the Israel, but that time Palestine was larger. Even the Transjordan was a part of Palestine. Now what happens we see further. The Jews, however, the Britishers had the Jews keep migrating to the land of Palestine. The Jews' migration after Theodore Herzl's Zionist policy continued from 1920 to 1948. Continuous Jews migration continued, and the Britishers they gave land to the Jews. The Palestinian interests or the Arab interests were discarded. Now, when the Arab interests were discarded from 1936 continued till 1939, the Arabs revolted against the open-ended invitation to the Palestinians. Arabs said, what are you doing? On one hand, you promised us a greater Arab nation. On the other hand, you're inviting the Jews into Palestine and creating problems for us. So I stand corrected, the Arab revolt started. And as you are aware, the British are very fond of commissions. They established a Peel Commission. Lord William Robert Wellesley Peel, this gentleman, was made in charge of this commission. And Lord Peel, he suggested a two-state idea within Palestine itself. He said that the West Bank and Gaza, which are Arab majority, should become Palestine Arabs, should be a state for Palestine Arabs, and the area in between should be for the Jews. We'll see further in the next slide as to how this division was done. Sir Henry Peel, I stand corrected, Lord William Peel gave his report in 1937. It recommended the termination of the British mandate. It said, look, Britishers cannot anymore control it. Let's terminate our rule there. And let's partition Palestine into two separate states. One is the Arab state and another is the Jewish state. And he gave a map like this. This yellow area is Arab state. This green area is Jewish state. And this red area, this is Jerusalem, to be mandated to be an international territory to be controlled by international agencies. The revolt, the fights between the Arabs and Jews continued. Now comes the World War II. The Arab revolts were continuing. 1939 to 1945, World War II starts. We all know the World War II was between Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan on one side. And the allies were France, Great Britain, United States, and Soviet Union, and partially China also. We go further. The discrimination against Jews increased during World War II, and to an extent that Holocaust took place. We all understand what Holocaust is. The systematic extermination of Jews in gas chambers and by starvation. 6 million Jews were killed by Hitler. It was deadly against Jews, and he considered Jews to be one of the main reasons of problem. See, these are the pictures, how the Jews were killed, how the Jews were starved during Holocaust. 1939, during the anti-Semitism of Hitler during World War II was at its peak. However, the Jews were being given land by the Britain, the Palestinian interest was discarded. Jew migration increased tremendously during Holocaust, and it was but natural. 1945, the World War II ended. Large number of Jews had already migrated to Palestine. 47-48, civil war started in Palestine between the Jews and the Arabs. We all know that in 1947, the UN came into existence because the League of Nations had failed. UN was new, full of joy, full of enthusiasm. 1948, UN recognized Israel, divided Palestine into two states, more or less in consonance with Peel Commission to some extent. UN Resolution of 181 of November 1947 recommended the creation of independent but economically linked Arab and Jewish states and extraterritorial special international regime for the city of Jerusalem. See, the UN mandate decreed, this greenish area was the Jewish area, this yellowish area was the Arab area. This is also Arab, and this Gaza Strip was also. This is West Bank, Arab area, Gaza Strip, Arab area, the northern part of Israel, Arab area, and this area in the center was the Jewish state. We go further. This is a depiction of the same. Jewish state, West Bank Arab, this area Arab, and this larger Gaza Strip also Arab division, Arab state. Now the moment UN accepted, Israel declares independence under Ben Gurion in 1948. The moment Israel declares independence in 1948, the Arab-Israel war starts. Let's see. The British disappeared. The 30 years old mandate of the British came to an end in 1948. The British unilaterally withdrew their 1 lakh strong forces from there. And very surprisingly, in other countries, whenever the British used to depart, they used to be handing over power to somebody. Here they disappeared without handing over power to anybody, did not hand over to any successor government. And the tiff or the riots between Arabs and Jews started. They left the Jews and the Arabs to fight for the Holy Land. Ben Gurion, the Israeli leader, declares independence. The moment Ben Gurion declares independence, 5 countries, Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Lebanon, and Syria, all 5 countries which are surrounding Israel, they attack the small little country Israel. But they were not aware of the tenacity that Israel enjoys. Israel wins the war. 7 lakh refugees are displaced. They go to different Arab countries, but still they are not getting any citizenship. We go down further. This Gaza Strip was earlier like this larger. Israel captures this. Israel captures West Bank. Israel captures larger areas of West Bank. So what are the countries that attack Israel? Egypt. Egypt is right up to this place. Egypt from south, Lebanon from north, Syria from northeast, Jordan from west. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5th is Iraq. Iraq also supports. 5 countries together attack Israel during the first 1948 Arab-Israel war, and see the surprise, here it is. 1948, you see all these red areas, all these areas marked in red. Israel captures this much of additional territory by defeating all these 5 powers. Israel comes out victorious. And Israel has not lost any war against the Arab countries so far, you see here in this map. This is the 1947 map. This is the 1947. This red area was the Arab area, Gaza Strip was this larger, West Bank was also large enough, and this was also an Arab area. Then after 1948 war, this area is usurped by Israel. The West Bank is made smaller, you see it has been reduced. The Gaza Strip is reduced to a very tiny part. This entire area is taken by Israel. And if you go even before 1947, before the UN mandate, 1946, this large part was the Arab territory, this Arab territory, green. And Israel was very small in the yellow parts. 1947, after the UN mandate, Israel areas increases. This was Israel yellow part, and this green part was the Palestinian Arab part. 48 we have already seen. 1948, Israel increases its territory. 67, see further it usurps these areas. Further the green part, the Arab part further reduces. 67, the 6-day war. And today the condition of the Palestinians is very poor, in very small minuscule parts they are. Most of the area is occupied by Israel. This is how Israel is expanding. This is another map to show the various expansions carried out by Israel. But suffice it to say here that 1948 war Israelis win, capture a lot of territory. And the second scuffle or the second battle or the wars between Arab and Israelis maybe is this 1956 Suez crisis. What is the Suez crisis? You see, this is the Suez Canal. It was being mandated or being controlled by the French and the British. A Suez Canal, this was made by these people only, and a Suez Canal company was controlling that, earning a lot of revenue. Suddenly, in the year 1956, Nasser, the president of Egypt, he nationalized this Suez Canal. He nationalized this Suez Canal. The Suez Canal comes on the Egyptians, the entire revenue comes on the Egyptians. Britain and France are cheesed off. UK invades, Britain invades, the French invade this Suez Canal, and they also ask Israelis, look, Israelis, we have helped you out through these years, please help us out. Israelis come, they also attack Suez Canal. The Suez Canal comes under the capture of UK, France, and Israel. However, tremendous world pressure from UN, from US, and from USSR. The British and the French have to withdraw. They have to go back. Now, because of the withdrawal of British, French, and the Israelis, intervention of UN, the canal comes back under the dominion of Egypt, and Nasser becomes a hero. Israelis are not given freedom to use the Suez Canal. Now, what happens is after the Suez crisis, wherein Nasser comes out to be diplomatically victorious, he becomes a hero of the West of the Arab world. Nasser becomes overconfident. Clandestinely, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt, all the countries surrounding it, including Iraq, they plan an attack against Israel, clandestine attack. Egypt suddenly moves its forces to the Gulf of Kaaba. This is the Gulf of Kaaba. Here it is. Where are we? This is the Gulf of. Suddenly moves the troops here. Aqaba. But Israel intelligence agency works. Israel carries out preemptive strikes and destroys 90% of the airfields. Once the airfields are destroyed, these countries' aircrafts cannot take off. Israel moves its ground forces, captures the Sinai Peninsula, a huge, huge area from Egypt, captures Golan Heights from Syria, captures West Bank from Jordan, and captures the East Jerusalem also, the entire Jerusalem. Nasser is badly defeated, runs to UN. UN asks Nasser to recognize Israel, and Resolution 242 is signed. Egypt signs. Egypt and Israel sign the peace accord. Now see here, during the 6-day war, this is the Sinai Peninsula. This is a part of Egypt, such a huge area, larger than Egypt, Israel. It has been captured from Egypt. Gaza Strip is captured. Entire West Bank, which is a part of Jordan, West Bank is captured. And this area is hillocks known as Golan Heights. It's captured from Syria. See, Golan Heights from Syria, West Bank from Jordan, and this area, entire Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, and Gaza Strip from Egypt. 6-day war was a massive and a very great military victory by Israel. Within 6 days, it's a large capture. Now see here. Once the 6-day war is over, gradually the Arab countries start realizing that it's not very easy to defeat Israel. The people of Palestine also start realizing that. In 1964, PLO is born. PLO stands for Palestine Liberation Organization. It was a group of large number of militant groups. In 1969, Yasser Arafat, who is leader of one of the militant groups known as Fatah, is elected as the head of PLO. Here is Mr. Yasser Arafat. Now the militancy starts, having believed that, look, it is directly very difficult to frontally or directly confront Israel through conventional war. Underground war starts. From 1960 to 1971, for almost a decade, their operations, the PLO operates from Jordan. We know where is Jordan? This is Jordan. The PLO operates from this area. In 1971, Jordan comes under pressure of Israel. Jordanian army asks the PLO to leave due to Israeli retaliation. PLO shifts its headquarters to Lebanon. Where is Lebanon? Lebanon is towards this is Lebanon. From here they move to Lebanon. In 1975 they shift their headquarters to Lebanon. In 1979, Camp David, after the Six-Day War, 2-3 years after that, 1979, the Camp David Accord is signed. That's an accord between Egypt and Israel. They make peace. The PLO is further demoralized. From 1971 to 1981, they continue their operations from Lebanon. In 1978, somewhere in between this decade, Israelis attack Lebanon. They attack PLO in a way. 1982, Second Israel-Lebanon War starts. PLO was expelled from Lebanon. PLO shifts its headquarters to Tunis, a North African country's capital. And at the same time, in 1982, gradually another militant group erupts in Lebanon, and that is known as Hezbollah, which is still continuing in the war between Hezbollah and Israelis, ongoing as of now. 1982, Israel occupies South Lebanon, keeps occupying South Lebanon to create a cushion between the Israeli territory and the Lebanese militia groups. 1988, out of dissatisfaction closer to Oslo Accords, because Palestine gradually started talking to Israel, Hamas, a more radical Sunni group, emerges. From 1982 to 2000, Israel was occupying South Lebanon. 2000, Israel decides to vacate South Lebanon. In 2005, Israel decides to vacate Gaza also. And once these areas are vacated, militancy increases. In 2006, Hamas unexpectedly wins in Gaza, elections held. 2007, Hamas forcibly usurps power in Gaza. And they start militancy against Israel. In 2008, Israel attacks Gaza, then 12 again attacks, 2014 again, and presently 2021 also, and presently 23 and 24 Gaza wars are continuing. So there are almost 5th Gaza war is continuing now. 4 were earlier. The Yom Kippur War. Now, 1967, we had seen that the Six-Day War was there. Israel was badly defeated. But by 1973, talks had started, but still something was brewing. In 1973, Nasser still had doubts in his mind. Egypt and Syria clandestinely plan an attack. And on the day of Yom Kippur festival, it's a festival of repentance with the Israelis when they take a holiday. Suddenly, Syria and Egypt from two sides attack Israel. They carry out preemptive strike by Egypt and Syria. Israel was surprised. Fighting continues for 19 days. It was a difficult war for Israel. First time slight difficulty. Israel was able to repulse the forces, but it was a hard-won war with US help. This brought Israel to the negotiating table, and this led to the Camp David Agreement. The Arabs were also tired. They were not able to win any war. And the Israelis also realized the futility of war. This area is Camp David, a beautiful holiday resort of the President of the United States. What is Camp David? It's a holiday resort for the US President, located about 100 kilometers northwest of the capital, Washington, D.C. This is Camp David. What was the Camp David Accord? 1978, the Camp David Accord takes place. The accord was carried out between Egypt and Israel at a location, as we have already discussed, Camp David. Egypt now finally accepts the two-nation theory. In exchange of, it accepts the existence of Israel. That's a very important milestone. In return, Israel gives back the Sinai Peninsula, a large peninsula captured during the Six-Day War. It was a major breakthrough, and first time any Arab nation recognizes Israel. You see here, President Sadat of Egypt, Prime Minister Begin of Israel, and President of US Jimmy Carter. Anwar Sadat, Prime Minister of Israel Menachem Begin, and Jimmy Carter of US, they together, under the guidance or leadership of Jimmy Carter, these two people signed an agreement. Palestinians are further demoralized. Now the rise and growth of PLO takes place. After the Six-Day War of 1967, we realized that the Palestinians stopped believing in pan-Arab Islamism. They knew that the Egyptians are going closer to the Israelis. 1964 PLO was raised by Mr. Yasser Arafat. They started attacks from Jordan, as we have already discussed. They were expelled from Jordan in 1971. Jordanian army asked them to leave. PLO shifts its headquarters to Lebanon. The Arab states recognize PLO. They make them a part of Arab League. Israel again attacks Beirut. PLO is forced to leave Beirut again and shifts its headquarters to Tunis, we have already discussed. Now, having realized that it's very difficult to confront Israel, mass uprisings take place amongst the Palestinian dissatisfied population. These mass uprisings are known as first and second intifadas, the era of intifadas. The word intifada in Arabic means uprisings, mass uprisings. There were two intifadas carried out by the Palestinian people. Obviously, the PLO and the Hamas were a part of that. But it was mainly a people's uprising. The first intifada started in 1987 and continued till 1988. First intifada. It means uprising. It was a series of protests, civil disobedience and riots. It was carried out on the 20th year of Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories. 6 years of continuous protests continued. More than 1,087 Palestinians were killed, and approximately 160 Israelis, that included 60 soldiers, were killed. Intifadas, the first intifada, stopped when the Oslo Accords were signed. Now, what were Oslo Accords? You see, by 1988, the intifadas we've seen, they started in 1988. Intifadas were mass uprising, you see. 87 they started. By 88, gradually PLO also had mellowed down a little. Intifadas were costly for Israel also. 1992, a new government had come into Israel. And secret talks between PLO and Israel had started in 1988, which finally culminated in the year 1993 into Oslo Accords, which we'll see. Now, what were Oslo Accords? See, Oslo is the capital of Norway. With the mediation of Norway, Oslo Accords were signed. They were conducted under the mediation of Norway. After 3 decades of terror strikes, PLO finally accepts Israel under the Oslo Accords. See, this is President Yitzhak Rabin, Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. Here is the head of PLO, Sri Yasser Arafat, and here is Bill Clinton. He is the President of US. 1988 commitments of PLO that they recognize Israel reiterated. Israel in turn also accepts the existence of PLO and considers that PLO is the genuine representative of the people of Palestine. A Palestinian Authority, PA, was formed, which would govern the Arab-dominated areas. Gradually, Israel agrees to withdraw from West Bank and Gaza Strip in stages. Palestinian Authority will govern the Gaza and the West Bank, and all the outstanding matters will be settled in the next 5 years, 93 onwards, 5 years. They agreed that by 1998, things should be, I stand corrected, 1998, next 5 years we'll keep discussing and keep solving our issues. Nothing much is done by 1998. Some Palestinian factions are dissatisfied with the PLO Accords. A more radical group, Hamas, emerges, which says we don't consider the existence of Israel. They import arms, starts attacks on Israel. Israel doesn't stop. It also continues increasing its settlements. The talks break down in 2000, and a wave of frustration and recrimination restarts. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Ariel Sharon of Israel makes a mistake. Just to assert his Israeli authority, he visits the Temple Mount with 1,000 soldiers, more than 1,000 soldiers. They visit the Temple Mount as a show of strength. They enter the Al-Aqsa Mosque, supposed to be the third holiest site for Islam. And that was the trigger point. The second Intifada starts. Another 5 to 6 years gone. The second Intifada was more violent than the first Intifada. It is also known as the Al-Aqsa Intifada because it started with the Israeli intervention to Al-Aqsa Mosque. It was more violent. 4,300 people registered dead. Israel launches the Operation Defensive Seal to reoccupy West Bank, Gaza Strip. It erects barriers and walls. Violence subsides by 2005. The Israeli settlements continue. Palestinian Authority loses support among the people. People start realizing that the PA is not able to do anything. Hamas, a more radical militant group, emerges in the Gaza Strip. Hamas wins 2006 elections. Now there are two authorities. One is the PA in the West Bank. PA is in the West Bank, and here in the Gaza Strip is Hamas. It becomes very difficult to whom to talk to. See here, the Palestinian Authority is here, ruling here, Palestinian Authority. It is the PLO which rules here, and here comes his Hamas in the Gaza Strip. This is a radical Sunni group. This is a more moderate group. It becomes very difficult for Israel to whom to talk to. Now we'll go to Lebanon-Israel wars. The Gaza-Israel wars, the fifth one still continuing, we've already studied. How did the Lebanon-Israel war start? This is a country, Lebanon, north of Israel. We had seen that in 1971, the PLO had shifted its headquarters in Beirut. Israel had to attack Lebanon in order to oust the PLO. That is how the Israel-Lebanon war started. When it was in the process of ousting PLO, another militant group known as Hezbollah erupted, laid its foundation here. Hezbollah is still continuing in southern Lebanon. In 1982, as you have seen, the Israelis attacked Lebanon in order to oust PLO from Israel. However, at that time only birth of Hezbollah takes place. After withdrawal from Sinai, after the Camp David Accords, Israel attacked Lebanon. It forced PLO out of Beirut. 1982, a militant organization, Hezbollah, emerges in Lebanon as a Shiite militant group. It had cropped up basically to resist the Israeli invasion and to help out the PLO. Hezbollah continued its guerrilla operations against Israel. Israel withdrew in 2000. However, we had already discussed that in 1981-82, the PLO had shifted its headquarters. However, the Hezbollahs continued. 2000 unilaterally, Israel withdraws from South Lebanon. Now, in 2006, again Hezbollah attacks from Lebanon. Again, Hezbollah starts rocket fire and attacks northern Israel. Now, how come we should understand this thing that the Palestinian government is very, I stand corrected, the Lebanese government is very weak and Hezbollah is more powerful than the Lebanese government. That's why it's surviving there. The Hezbollah captures 2 Israeli soldiers. Israel retaliates. Millions are displaced. However, by 2006, after winning, Israel says that its stated objectives have been achieved and Israel unilaterally withdraws in 2006. Hezbollah is appreciated by the Arab countries for its fighting capabilities. It gave a standing fight to the Israelis. However, the Israeli soldiers who are abducted are killed, and in 2000 their remains are exchanged. And the latest, very recently in the last month, Israel-Hezbollah war is again going on. The Hezbollahs have attacked to favor or to help out the Hamas attacks. Now we go to Abraham Accords. What are Abraham Accords? Abraham Accords are accords carried out between Israel and certain Arab countries. The name has been given Abraham Accords because Abraham was the common ancestor of these three religions. Now the militant groups are also cheesed off because of Abraham Accords. They don't want the Abraham Accord to be successful. That's why the latest problems are occurring. Now let's see what are Abraham Accords. In 2020, Israel-Arab diplomatic ties were restored. We know that Egypt, long back after the Camp David, had restored ties. In the last 3 years, since September 2020, Bahrain, UAE, Morocco, and Sudan, these 4 countries have also established diplomatic ties with Israel. These are Abraham Accords. And the militant groups don't like this. Now what happens? Have been cheesed off because of the Abraham Accords in 2021 and 23 recently. 7th October 23, a massive attack by Hamas militants occurs on Israel, and we'll read further what happens. What happened since 2023 till date? See, complete 20th century and beginning of the 21st century, wars were between Israel and Arab forces, Arabian countries and Israel. But 2007, Hamas emerges. Hamas usurps power in Gaza. And the wars become more localized. 2008, Israel attacks Hamas because Hamas militants attack Israel. 2012 again, Hamas-Israel war takes place. 2014 again, Hamas-Israel war takes place. 2021 again, Hamas-Israel scuffles take place. And the 5th time now, 4 were earlier Gaza wars. And the 5th is ongoing now as we are taking this lecture. Israel and Hamas, helped by Hezbollah, war continues in Gaza enclave, and the present war is also going on in the Palestine, Lebanon area. We go further. The latest development on 7th October 2023, Hamas attacks and the Israelis retaliate. What happens? 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. 1973, we know the Yom Kippur War had occurred. Yom Kippur was a day of repentance, a holiday for the Israelis. It's a solemn Jewish holiday of Zeret. Suddenly, the Hamas militants attack and surprise the Israeli forces. Thousands of rockets are fired within 20 minutes. And the Iron Dome is broken, the so-called Israeli protective dome. Iron Dome is broken. Hamas militants paraglide, infiltrate into Israel in large numbers. They killed 1,200 people, innocent civilians and ladies and children. 240 are taken as hostages back into Hamas territories, that's the Gaza territories. Netanyahu vows to destroy Hamas. He declares a state of war against Hamas. More than 50% of the Gaza population has been displaced now. Half of Gaza has been turned into rubble. This is the deadliest Israeli retaliation in Gaza against the Palestinians since 1948. Now, why is it happening? There is something known as axis of resistance. Let's see what is axis of resistance. See, these militant groups are being favored by Iran. So the militant groups combined with Iran are known as axis of resistance. Look here. Iran is the mastermind. That's what Israel says of all these militant groups. It's a Shia country. It is helping out the Houthis. Houthis in Yemen. Houthis are also Shia. It is helping out the Sunnis in Gaza Strip. And it is helping out the Hezbollah in Lebanon. Sorry, it's helping out the Hezbollah in Lebanon and certain Iraqi militant groups. So Iran, certain Iraqi militant groups, certain Syrian militant groups, Hezbollah from Lebanon, the Hamas from Gaza, and the Houthis from Yemen. All these combined together are known as the axis of resistance. Iran plus the militant groups. Look here. The Hezbollah, the CIS group, Hezbollah is operating from Lebanon, we have seen. Hamas is operating from the Gaza Strip, we have seen. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad is operating from Palestine. The Houthis are operating from Yemen. All are being controlled by this mastermind Iran. You see here is beautiful cartoon, Hezbollah, Houthis here, and Hamas here. Our Israel is no less. The Israel's ghost army, Mossad, is known for eliminating its enemy. It's the secret intelligence agency of Israel. Mossad so far has assassinated the top leaders of Hamas and the top leaders of Israel. See, in November 2000, we stand corrected, January 2000, Qasim Soleimani, a leader of the Quds force of Israeli Revolutionary Guards, of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, was killed in Baghdad by US drone strike. You know, US is also favoring Israel. Mr. Qasim Soleimani, US believes was harming US interests, was carrying out attacks against Israel, US installations in various countries. So they, by a drone strike in Iraq, they eliminated Mr. Qasim Soleimani, who was the big general of the Quds force of IRGC, Iranian forces. In retaliation, Iran carried out certain strikes at US installations in Iraq which were ineffective. In November 2000, Mr. Mohsin Fakhrizadeh was a top nuclear scientist of the Iran. The Israelis eliminated Mr. Mohsin Fakhrizadeh, and it was a very interesting elimination. Mr. Mohsin Fakhrizadeh was driving down from his holiday resort. He had his commandos to guard him. He himself was driving, his wife was next to him. On one of the turns, suddenly fire comes, 16 bullets strike Mr. Mohsin Fakhrizadeh, and not even a single bullet strikes his wife. That was the accuracy of the firing. Suddenly these Iranian commandos jump out, look around for enemy, but they don't find any enemy. There was a machine gun with a robot fixed to it which had fired. By the time the commandos approached that machine gun, the machine gun blew itself off. And this entire apparatus was being operated from a faraway land, Israel. This was the level of technology that Israel enjoys. In July 2024, Mr. Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, he was the political face of Hamas in international diplomacy. He was eliminated. During his visit to Tehran, in Tehran, he had gone to the swearing-in ceremony of the president of Tehran. Few days later, Mr. Yahya Sinwar, who was the chief architect of the 2023 attacks on Israel, wherein so many civilians were killed, he's also been eliminated. That means the first leader of Hamas and the second successor of Hamas, both have been killed. Hezbollah, the Shia terrorist group which is attacking Israel, their leader, Mr. Sayyid Nasrallah, September 24, he's been eliminated in an airstrike by Israel. So almost all top leaders have been eliminated. We'll see the photographs. This is Mr. Mohsin Fakhrizadeh, the Iranian nuclear scientist. He's been killed outside Tehran while coming back from his holiday resorts, and he's been killed by Israel, basically to scuttle Iranian nuclear proliferation. Here is Mr. Qasim Soleimani. He was killed, a top leader of the Quds force. He was killed by US, not by Israel. But Israel and US work in tandem. Here are the other top leaders. This is Mr. Ismail Haniyeh, the political face of Hamas, the main leader of Hamas, killed. His successor was Mr. Yahya Sinwar, again a leader of Hamas, killed. And here Mr. Hassan Nasrallah, the main head, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, eliminated. That is the power and the planning of Israel. Now, in this entire gamut, religious intolerance is the biggest curse of humanity, there is no denying. And who suffers? The poor, innocent civilians suffer. Women, children, and innocent civilians lying in coffins. We wish humanity prevails over hatred. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. I finish my lecture. Thank you.